Welcome back to the channel, to a deep dive into a critical issue gripping one of America's great cities. Over the Labor Day weekend in 2025, Chicago faced a devastating wave of violence, with 58 people shot, 8 fatally, across neighborhoods like Bronzeville, Pilsen, and Altgeld Gardens, as reported by the Chicago Police Department. This tragic toll, including a drive-by wounding 7 in Bronzeville and a 17-year-old girl shot inside her home, has thrust Chicago into the national spotlight, sparking a heated clash between President Donald Trump's push for federal intervention and fierce resistance from Democratic leaders like Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker. Subscribe to stay informed on the stories shaping our world. The violence was scattered but relentless, touching neighborhoods from Bronzeville to East Garfield Park, Altgeld Gardens to Pilsen, and beyond. One particularly chilling episode was a drive-by shooting in the 1900 block of West 79th Street, where 7 people were wounded, including innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. In another tragedy, a 17-year-old girl was struck by a bullet while inside her home in the 9900 block of South Hoxie Avenue, highlighting how this scourge invades even the sanctity of personal spaces. Homicides included a 25-year-old woman found with multiple gunshot wounds in South Shore, a 43-year-old woman killed in Altgeld Gardens, and several men gunned down in separate altercations. No arrests were made in most cases, leaving families grieving and communities on edge, as investigators questioned persons of interest but offered little immediate closure. Preliminary reports from the Chicago Police Department adjusted the numbers slightly in some accounts to 56 wounded and 7 killed, but the toll remained grim, with an 8th body recovered from Lake Michigan under mysterious circumstances. This wasn't isolated. It fit a pattern of holiday spikes, where warm weather and gatherings often correlate with heightened risks, as noted by experts like Charles Lorigio, a professor at Loyola University Chicago, who pointed to pleasant conditions contributing to outdoor conflicts. President Donald Trump wasted no time in responding, putting Chicago squarely in his sights as a symbol of what he calls failed Democratic leadership. From the White House, Trump declared the city the worst and most dangerous in the world, vowing to deploy National Guard troops to restore order. "We're going in," he stated emphatically, though without a specific timeline, echoing his recent actions in Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles where federal forces were used to crack down on crime. In a pointed message aimed at Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Trump warned, "Straighten it out, fast, or we're coming." He highlighted the weekend's bloodshed, including a mass shooting that occurred mere hours after one of his social media posts, and positioned himself as the decisive leader ready to solve the crime problem fast, just like I did in D.C. The White House amplified this narrative in an official article titled, "For J.B. Pritzker, When Will Enough Be Enough?" accusing the governor of being blinded by Trump derangement syndrome, and ignoring pleas from residents, city council members, and even some media outlets for federal help. They touted successes in D.C. and urged Chicagoans not to live like this, framing the intervention as a lifeline rather than an intrusion. But this proposal met with swift and vehement resistance from Democratic leaders in Illinois, who view it as an overreach that threatens civil liberties and local autonomy. Governor Pritzker, a staunch Democrat, dismissed Trump's threats as unhinged and unconstitutional, vowing to fight any deployment in court. He cited intelligence from unauthorized patriotic officials and reporters about federal agents and military vehicles staging at the Great Lakes Naval Base, preparing for action that could begin imminently. Pritzker emphasized that crime prevention efforts are already yielding results, with no emergency warranting such drastic measures, and accused Trump of manufacturing a crisis for political gain. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson echoed these sentiments, signing an executive order dubbed the Protecting Chicago Initiative, to bar local police from cooperating with federal agents on patrols, arrests, or immigration enforcement. At a press conference, Johnson expressed grave concerns about escalating tensions, warning against tanks in the streets, families torn apart, and vulnerable populations like the homeless being harassed. He insisted that Chicago's police would enforce local laws but not be deputized by Trump, framing the resistance as a defense of constitutional rights. Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton and Attorney General Kwame Raoul joined the chorus, criticizing the lack of coordination and arguing that National Guard troops aren't trained for urban policing, preferring collaborative federal support instead. To understand this standoff, we must step back and examine Chicago's long-standing battle with gun violence, an issue that predates the current administration but has become a political lightning rod. The Windy City has grappled with high crime rates for decades, often linked to socioeconomic factors like poverty, gang activity, and easy access to firearms from neighboring states with laxer gun laws. In 2025 alone, city data records 272 homicides, including 225 fatal shootings, underscoring the persistent challenge. Yet, there's a silver lining. Violent crime has dropped significantly this year, with homicides down 33%, shootings down 38%, and overall violent incidents reduced by 21.4% compared to 2024. This progress is attributed to community programs, increased policing in hotspots, and reforms under local leadership. However, holidays like Labor Day, July 4th, 55 shot, 6 killed, and Memorial Day, 22 shot, 2 fatally often see surges, revealing vulnerabilities in these efforts. Critics like Alderman Raymond Lopez argue that federal help could relieve strained police resources, particularly in tourist areas like Michigan Avenue, allowing officers to focus on core duties. Historically, federal interventions in Chicago have been rare and contentious. The last time active-duty military was deployed against local wishes was in 1894 during a labor strike, a move that sparked riots and legal backlash. More recent examples, like the 1968 Democratic National Convention protests, involved National Guard activations by Illinois governors, not federal mandates. Trump's approach draws parallels to his first term, when he threatened similar actions in 2020 amid protests, but never fully executed them in Chicago. A recent federal judge's ruling found his National Guard deployment in Los Angeles violated the Posse Comitatus Act, which bars military involvement in domestic law enforcement without explicit authorization. While that decision is California-specific, it sets a precedent that could embolden Illinois' legal challenges. Legal experts warn that bypassing state consent could lead to court battles, potentially delaying or derailing the plan. From the streets of Chicago, reactions are mixed, reflecting the city's diverse voices. Some residents, like Rochelle Sykes, feel terrorized by unreported incidents and question the end of tools like ShotSpotter, which detects gunfire, arguing for any help available to stem the tide. Others, such as Cedric Hawkins, fear militarization could make neighborhoods feel like prisons, exacerbating distrust between communities and law enforcement. On social media platforms like X, the discourse is polarized. Posts blame Democratic policies for the chaos, with one user decrying Mayor Johnson's stance as prioritizing re-election over safety, while others accuse Trump of inciting violence or using the crisis for political theater. Conservative voices urge sending in troops, citing decades of Democratic rule as the root cause, whereas progressives highlight that Chicago's per capita murder rate, around 24 per 100,000, is lower than cities like St. Louis, 69.4 per 100,000, many in red states, questioning why Trump isn't targeting those equally. Politically, this episode underscores deeper divides in America's approach to crime. Trump's strategy aligns with his law and order mantra, appealing to his base by portraying blue cities as dystopias needing federal salvation. The White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson lambasted Democrats for politicizing safety, suggesting their resistance prioritizes partisanship over people. On the flip side, opponents see it as a power grab, potentially tied to broader agendas like immigration enforcement, with reports of ICE operations targeting Latino communities. Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker frame their defiance as protecting vulnerable groups from overreach, echoing concerns from past federal actions that led to civil rights violations. Looking at implications, a federal deployment could temporarily suppress violence through increased presence, as seen in D.C., but risks long-term backlash, including protests or eroded trust in institutions. Economically, persistent crime hampers tourism and business in areas like the Magnificent Mile, while successful interventions might bolster Trump's image ahead of midterms. For Chicago, solutions lie in multifaceted approaches, bolstering community violence intervention programs, which have shown promise in reducing shootings by 20 to 30% in targeted areas, alongside stricter gun trafficking laws to stem the flow from states like Indiana. Experts advocate for data-driven policing, mental health support, and economic investments in underserved neighborhoods to address root causes. Comparatively, other cities offer lessons. Baltimore and Memphis, with higher murder rates, have experimented with federal partnerships without full military takeovers, yielding mixed results. In New Orleans, community-led initiatives complemented law enforcement, cutting homicides by 15% last year. Chicago could draw from these, but the current impasse hinders collaboration. As we wrap this up, consider the human cost. Behind every statistic are families shattered, like the mother mourning her daughter or the child scarred by stray bullets. This isn't just about Trump versus Democrats, it's about forging paths to safer streets for all. Whether through federal aid, local reforms, or a hybrid, the urgency is clear. Chicago's resilience shines through its drops in crime stats, but weekends like this remind us progress is fragile. Let's hope dialogue prevails over division, leading to solutions that honor the city's spirit and protect its people. Thank you for listening. Stay informed, stay engaged.